Hello guys, today it's going to be my longest video yet. I'm going to make a video about using user snippet in Visual Studio Code. Now obviously there are a few videos out there, but most of them just cover some of the basics. So I'm just going to try and go a little bit more in depth of things I discovered. So first of all, what are user snippets? Well, user snippets are something different, but snippets in a language is in an editor is when you have something like that. We all know in Visual Studio Code we have emmet where you can use different shortcuts where you just write this, for example, and you hit tab and it does the whole structure. It's basically something that you always have to write, and instead of writing it all by hand, you just press this and it gives you a suggestion from emmet, and you can do this and erase all this for you. And emmet obviously has also quite a few other interesting things, like for example, if you write for example a dot and then you write a name container and you hit tab, it creates div with the class container. Or if you create if you say this and name, it creates a div with the id name, and so on. But the subject of this video is not actually emmet, even though there's so many interesting things that could be said about it. This the subject of this video is user created snippets, where even if you have snippets from some extension, sometimes you may need a snippet that there's not in any extension. Or for example, you have an extension and they have a snippet, but it's not exactly how you're used to do things, so you may want it a little bit different, so you will need to create your own. Now let's just go a little bit and see what are the advantages of using snippets. Now, one disadvantage that some people will say is if you use snippets for creating a lot of different things automatically, then you wouldn't have as much exercise in doing them and you would forget how to do them. Now, I don't think that's necessarily an issue or a problem, because in coding it's mostly about understanding things, and sometimes if you forget something, you can just quickly look it up, and as long as you understand it, you're going to be able to use it. Now, one of the advantages of using user snippet, which is basically blocks of code that are always the same, is that if you use a snippet, you will never forget a comma in that particular structure, or some stuff that may create a bug that you don't even know where the bug is, and maybe it's just a comma. So if you write like I showed here, this automatically like this, you won't have to worry that you forgot something in there. It will just there automatically. Another advantage is that it saves you time. Like imagine writing all this from scratch, right? So yeah, those are the advantages. Now let's just go a little bit into the settings that I have for when creating user snippets, and I will go a little bit in a little bit to how to create user snippets. But if I just go in my settings JSON, you will have to press Command Shift P on Mac. I think it's Control Shift P or something like that to open the settings JSON. In Windows, not sure, but you can just Google that. Command Shift P on Mac, and it will open your user setting JSON, and you can edit it here on the right. And there are some settings that I use to make sure that the user snippets that I create are as work as good as possible. And let me just find which ones they are. Okay, this is another one. So for editor quick suggestions, I have this. Just look at this and copy this in your settings. You want strings to be true as well, so you get suggestion in strings as well. Otherwise, when you're inside commas and you write the prefix for for a user snippet, it will not show you the suggestion, so you will not be able to use it. So you need this to be true as well. Okay, so just copy this. Now you want also editor quick suggestion delay to be 0. You want it to be 0 so you don't have to wait for them. Okay. Okay, going. If you don't have this, put this as well, editor tab completion on. You also want editor snippet suggestions to be at the top. You want them to be the first. When it shows you quick suggestions, you want your snippet suggestions to be at the top. Okay. Okay, this is not about this. I think this is it for the settings. If you guys have any problems about using user snippets, you can always leave me a comment and I'll try to answer you, because I might forget some things in this big video that I know, because it's not easy to keep track of all the things, especially when there's so much to know about user snippets. Okay, and I'm saying user snippets so much that anyway, let's go forward. So we went to the settings. Now let's check out some tools that will help us when doing user snippets. Now this is gonna come a little bit later on. This is a tester for regex expressions, and I'm not so good at regex, but I am learning, and I have been getting some nice help from some people on Stack Overflow. So if you need a regex expression for something and you don't know how to do it, you can always ask a question on Stack Overflow. There are some really helpful people there, especially in the regex area. I've seen that you get some really good answers, and I'm going to make some section for thanks at the end of this video to thank a few people on Stack Overflow. Okay, so one of the tools that you will use almost all the time when creating user snippet is this one by Powell Grisbeck. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. This is a really good tool which also works for Sublime Text and Atom. I'm using it for Visual Studio Code. But this helps you create the user snippets easier instead of writing some ineligible JSON structure. You will see what I mean when we get to creating user snippets. So this is the link, Snippet Generator app. Put this in your bookmarks or make it like me, pin it here. So this is going to help you. Okay. And what else there is? I think this is for now. This tool is all we're gonna use at the beginning. I also want to open Visual Studio Code user snippet documentation, because I will show you some things there. But anyway, let's just get started on the basics on user snippets. So let's create a file called app.js, for example, and let's say we have a code like this. Let's say creating a arrow function, right? Okay, let's just first make a really simple one. So let's just say there is a code that you always use, like const app equals, or no, let's just go with the simple one. Yeah, let's just go with console log hello world. Yeah, now this doesn't have any variable in it that you need to change. It's just console logging hello world, right? Now you need to write all this by hand. Okay, now how you would create a user snippet is you want to copy this, right, and use that tool I showed you. Where is it? Here, right? And you would copy this here like this. You give it a prefix, which is the letters you're gonna use to basically get that snippet suggestion. So I can say CL here from console log hello, oh, hello world. Yeah, you can put any prefix you want in there for this, right? And you say console, you give it a name, right? Now you see this wonderful tool creates the object, whatever you need to copy in your user snippet. So you can just say copy snippet, right? And the way you create user snippet in Visual Studio Code is you go to here, you press this, right? And you can see here user snippet, and when you press user snippet, you have different files for different languages. So you can either put it in the general file, new global snippets file, you can create one, and the snippets that you put there will be available in all language, in all extensions, right? Or you can put it so that those letters only give that snippet suggestions for a particular language. And I will go here with JavaScript Json, and you can see I have quite a few here. I will put this one at the bottom. When you first open it, usually it tells you, so if I go for a different language user snippet and I say for example Dockerfile, it will show you something like this. Press your snippets for Dockerfile here, and you just need to remove this, and then you can start putting your snippets in these objects. Leave the first one and the last one are here. Just delete this and you can put snippets here, and after each snippet you want to put like this, right? And then you paste your snippet. But I don't want to put it here because I don't want it for this particular extension, right? So don't save. Okay, I will go back into, I don't know why I closed that one. I will go into the JavaScript JSON and put that one at the bottom of the file, right? After this, I will put this one, right? And you can see this is the prefix CLHV. So now if I go in a JavaScript file and I write CLHV, and you can see it shows me that that suggestion CLHV, it shows it at the top because of the setting I put in the settings to show my user snippets at the top, right? And you can see there CLHV, you can press tab and it's just write that for you. Okay, so now using just this is just normal text that will be some long text where you don't make any changes. So this is like the simplest form of using a user snippet where you don't change nothing in it. Now let's say that we want the we want to write something something of our own in here. Maybe let's say without this, right? We want, when we press that when we use that snippet, to just write console log and then the cursor to end up in here. So what we would do is we would copy this here, right, like this. And what we want in here is for a tab stop to be here. And a tab stop, you write it like this. You put a $sign and 1, and that would be the first tab where the cursor will go. So now if I copy this instead and go here like this and press this, right, you can see the cursor just ends up there, and you can either write the name of a variable here, or you can go like this and write something here. Now let's say you want a console log that will have some text, and after the text you will want a variable name. So you would kind of need two tab stops. So if I copy this and put it here, and I put here one tab stop like this, the number 1 tab stop, and then here the number 2 tab stop, and copy this instead, this. Copy this here, CLHB, right? Now you can see that the top stop first ends up here because I put 1 here. I write something here. I hit tab again, and when I hit tab, it goes to the next one. And now I can write the name of the variable home, for example, if I have a variable named home in my program, right? You can see that if I change this around, if I put 2 here and 1 here, and I copy this, I could have just changed here. I copy this here, okay, and then I do this. You can see that now the top stop is first here because this is where I put the 1, and after I write here home, then it goes there. Obviously you wouldn't want it to go in that order, but you can see that from the numbers you can put it come in whatever order you want. Now there is another trick that you could do. You can write this like this, and this like this. If you write it like this, you can also kind of give it a instruction. You can say two dots, variable here, and here you can say instruction here or description here, right? So you can basically give a suggestion what should go in there. So if I copy this, and I'm saying if I copy this a lot, okay, and I write CLHV, you can see that it says there description here, and you write the description something. It's selected for you, so you don't have to select it, and then you hit tab and you write what your variable, right? So this is really easy. Now these are the basic. We already started to go into variables and, well, into tab stops, right? Now let's see how we can make like how you call it, we make a tab stop with suggestions, right? We sometimes might want to do that. For example, I have this user snippet. Let me see where that is. This one, right? I have this one that I use racked, right? I do this, and when I do this, you can see that I can write a name there like get something, okay, and when I hit tab, it gives me some suggestions that I can choose going up and down, right? Now how do we do this? You do this by, let's just get rid of this and let's just go with a simple one, okay, and you would want to have after the tab stop, after the number of tab stop, you want to put a line like this and a line like this, and between these two lines you would want to put your choices, and you could put something like description or instruction, and I'm putting them between commas because I want them to be with commas, right? If I put them without commas, they would be like variables, right? Oh wait, no, I don't need to do that because they are already between commas, so I can just put description and instruction, right? Because I have the commas at the ends anyway, right? So I do that, I copy the snippet, go back at the bottom, and I do this, and then I say again, right? And you can see that I can choose between these two. If I click on this, I get this, right? Okay, so we have covered the basics of user snippets, and let me just get a drink of coffee, sorry about that. And now we will go into variables, right? And variables, they are variables provided by Visual Studio Code for user snippet. And if I go here, I can show you. You can go here and look for more documentation. But if I show you here, they provide some variables like tm selected text, current line, current word, or file name base, right? And how you can use this is like this. Let's say, for example, I have, for example, this user snippet, right? Now, this user snippet is basically the common structure I have for a component in React. And what's happening here, you can see, well, usually a component, I'm going to close this, usually a component has, let me just, new file, component, right? Component JS, rename, component JS. Okay, I don't need this. So usually the structure that I have is always having the name of the file, the name of the component here, here, and here it also has the name, because I will import container from somewhere called component styled, right? And what I'm using for this snippet is basically this tm file name base, right? It's basically using the file name, but the base is not getting the GS, it's just getting the base, right? And I will go through the creation of it, how you would use that variable to create this. What you want here is basically, you see now there's just a random name. When you copy this in the snippet creator, you would copy it like this, and instead of the name that you have like here, which would be different name depending on the name of the file, what you want to do is, let's see what happens if I use just tm file name. If I just use this, so I go back there, and instead of the name like this one, I want to create, like I would use a variable and put in here tm file name, right? I think it also works like this when you're not doing any transform on it. So I'll copy this, put it in here as well, and in here. And I will keep the same prefix, but you just need to put prefix, because I already have it once anyway with the prefix sco, but I'm just giving an example here. So if I copy the snippet and I put it here, right? Now what's happening is, when I do this, I choose this snippet and I click this, you can see that it's putting here the name of the file, but it's putting it with the, I don't know how you call it, the extensions at the extension at the end as well. So you can see component.js, component.js, component.js. Now I just want the base, so I will go here and use the other one, which is tm file name base. Sometimes you may need to use this, sometimes you may need to use this. There are quite a few that they give you that you can use, right? So what I want is, instead of this, I will just go and change it here. I can put tm file name base, right? Same here and same here. Okay, go in here, delete this, and I do that, and you can see now it's just using the name of the file to create this whole structure. Okay, so this is very good. Okay, so I think this is all I am going to cover in variables. You can well, I mean, you can see some more stuff when I'm explaining some other things using variables, but for now, yeah, this is the variables that you can use. Like you also have clipboard. If you have copied something and it's in the clipboard, you can use the contents of your clipboard. Okay. Okay, so I'm having some notes. Provided variables, yes, I went through that. And now let's go through some transformation basics, because sometimes you can transform. Oh, there's one thing I didn't cover. Sometimes you have stuff where you use the same thing twice, so you want to write it like a tab stop where you want to write the same thing twice. I will explain what I mean. Sometimes in React we have something like this where I write const action, then I write this, and then set, and then the same thing as here, only with big letters. Set actions equals use state and something in here, right? So I would write, I wouldn't want to write this name, that whatever I will give here, because this could be a different, could be clock, set clock, or different things. So I wouldn't want to have to write this word and then this, right? Now, the first thing that I did is I did something where it would write this, so it would write these two at the same time, and I will show you that now. So this is basically, these two things are the same. So how I did that, I copied this, and go in here, and instead of action you can put the tab stop like 1, and you can say name of action, just to be a bit distractive. You don't have to put that, you can just put 1. So I will just put 1, and then you want to have 1 here again, right? So when you write 1, it will write the second one as well. You can see it's the same stop. So when you write 1, it will write both at the same time. It's like multiple cursors, okay? So if I copy this, copy snippet, and I go in here, and I write this, CLHV, you can see it write this, and it gives me, oh, I just, sorry, I just hit something, right? And now if I write action, it writes both at the same time, action, set action, okay? Now, like I said, you could give it a descriptive name here, name of action, just for people know what to put. And if I copy this snippet, if I copy, you know, okay, and do this again, you can see it puts name of action and name of action, and then you can change it like clock, yeah, clock visible maybe, and it writes both at the same time. And then when you hit tab, well, I didn't put the two here. I'll just go back here and put it. Okay, sorry about that. And if I write this, I write this clock, and when I hit tab, it goes there, and I can write something. Now, there's one thing I want to mention quickly. There is a 0 that you can use, and you put the 0 where you want the tab cursor to end up at the end after after you do all your tab things, right? After you add all your custom information. So I want it to end up down there, right? So if I copy the snippet, if I copy, okay, and I write this, CLHV, I write clock, use state 0, and then when I hit tab it ends up there, and now I can write whatever. Okay, so you can see how this can be really useful to write things fast. Now, like I said before, I think I will go into the transformation basic now. Like I said before, here I need it to be with uppercase letter. So I will need to do some transformation on the second use of the variable, and I will show you how that happens. Basically, you can do a transformation here. They show in the documentation here how to do transformation. You basically can use some regex transformation to change things, variables and stuff like that. Even the variables they provide you can change, but also the things that you write, you can manipulate them using regex. And I will go first to simple ones that you can do, and then to a bit more complicated ones. And like I said, I'm not a master of regex, I'm just starting to learn it. But if you need some regex and you can make it up yourself, then you can always ask a question to the nice people on Stack Overflow. Okay, so go back here, and I need to do some transformation. The first one can be like I write it, but the second one needs to be with the letter capitalized at the first letter capitalized, right? So what I want to do is write the structure that they show for a transformation. You need to put a line like this, then write whatever capture you want to do on the variable. This is the capture regex, and this is how you want to transform it, what to replace it with, right? So basically you have some matches that you get. So for example, if I have something like I showed there, clock, and I need to basically for here I basically need to match everything from this variable, so all the letters. So for that you just use this, right? You say everything, which the dot is to get everything as many times as possible. So that's why it's matching all the letters. And you can see here they show you the groups, and group 1 is basically clock. So if I get this regex, okay, and I go in here, and like I showed there, this is how you do the transformation. You put these two and then one more. This is where you put your regex in here, and this is where you put your transformation, right? So I put here that I want to select everything, so I want to select the first one that I type. So basically I want to select everything from what I wrote, and then the way I want to, so basically now I have selected the whole word, and and now Visual Studio Code also provides some transformation that you can do on whatever on your matches. You can do upcase, which upcases everything, downcase or capitalize, and there's also camel case that they have, but it doesn't seem to be documented. So now that I selected everything from the variable that I write with this in here, I just want to write this and say 1, because this is the first match. You can see it says the first match, group 1 is clock, right? It's whatever it selects. So I go in here, I say the 1, so the first match, the first group. And how I want to transform it is I want to say capitalize, because I want the first letters to be uppercase, right? So if I copy this snippet, if I copy, okay, put it here, and now I use that. Now you can see it's still with lowercase letter, but it is like that at the beginning. Now if I write clock, when I hit tab, what happened? Oh, I think I did something wrong. So let me just go back and see what I did wrong. 1 capitalized. Okay, let me just go. Okay, this is a problem. Okay, so let me see how they make the example. Did I forget something? Okay. Oh, so I need to put a line like this before the transform. Okay. Yeah. So I think that this is what I missed. So yeah. So I put this. So going back, CL HV, I write clock, and you can see it transform it and it capitalize it, right? So you can also use these transforms on variables that they give you. So in the example before, if I go the example that I did before, where I was using the file name base, let's say in here I want the file name base to not be capitalized like it is, but I want to make it lowercase, all lowercase. So again, you have the variable that they give you, and you have these two things that you have to write. Here you write your select, and here how you want it change. And what I want to do is I want to select everything from the file name base. Okay, and then the transformation is the first match again. So let me write this first match, and how I want it transformed is down case, right? Down case. Okay, so now you remember how I was using it before. Now if I do this, you can see that it has down case the whole component, has made all lower letters, right? Like not upcase. Okay. Okay, so this is the transformation basics. Now let's go into a bit more advanced stuff. Okay, let me just because I can't think about it now, but let me think about let me check one advanced transformation that I had to do on the M file path. Right now, this is one for example, right? So index.js2. This is one that I had to write. So this is basically when I'm in a folder like component, and I have, let me delete these two things and do this magic here. So when I'm in a component, React component, I need to have a file index.js, and that file has to export default from component. And the way I do this is basically, but wait, I think I did I did something pretty stupid here. Anyway, so let's go to another one. I basically use the path, but I don't think I need to use the path for this one. So let's go. It just dawned on me that I went about it the hard way. The file name base. Okay, so this is one for example where you need to, like you see in here, I need to use the component name from here. So basically it has to get the file name base, but if you just get the file name base here, it will get component style. It will not take the style off, it will just take the GS off. So let me see what I had to write. Yeah, okay, so I had to write something like this. I had to do this transform on it. So I had to select this. I had to do this regex, okay? And you can see if I test it here on a file name that's like this, component. Okay, so this is when I use the file name base, it will just when I use the file name base, I will get this, but I need to transform this to just component, right? And I had to write this. I had to write something like this because I had to basically have styled in another well, I didn't need the style, so I just put with question mark, right? Because I needed to match it anyway, and this is the end of the word. And I also had to select from A to Z once, just once, and then everything until I get a style, right? So now I have two groups. I have the group one, which is C, and then component, because I need to basically downcase this one, right? And you can see the transform here. I have the first match downcase, but I think I could have just selected one and say downcase. But anyway, you can see how I'm removing the style here by making it optional, right? I don't need that much, so I don't use it at the end. Because here you put here at the end you just put only the groups that you need, right? So obviously you're gonna get better by exercising more with this transform, but you're gonna have to kind of learn how to select different things, right? And then just use the groups that you need in the final uh, in the transformed version, right? You just use the groups, these groups that you need, and you combine them, okay? Oh man, and my voice is getting, and I'm drinking coffee as well. Okay, so this is all and good. Once you do stuff like this, and you use this, which is gonna help you a lot, you could see how I could easily write when I'm in. Let me just delete all this file. Okay, when I'm creating another folder for another React component, for example, this is what I need them for, but you can use them in any language you want for things that are common. Like, for example, I have files that are called component style JS, and in here you sometimes have to write stuff like that: const header, well, something like export const header equals styled div backticks, go there, and this is a lot of writing sometimes, right? And you just write, if you just write a user snippet, you can just do sdiv, boom, and you write the name, header, you hit tab, and you're there, and you write whatever you want, right? So this is like really helpful. So now you can see at this point how using what I explained until now, some regex basics and more advanced regex transformation, and even without regex, you can do some pretty advanced user snippet that you can use. So at this point in my journey of learning user snippet, I could easily do some stuff that I needed really fast. Like when I create a new component, like let's name it header, I could create the new file in here, header JS, right? And I would just write in here SEO, boom. I would have all the first structure with these things here, right? I would save this, close this, and create the new one which would be something like this that I would always need, and this one would always have the first structure like this, and I have this one that I use, and it creates all this with this here, and right. So now this would be really fast. And now also I would create, well, I have to create it under the right, and I would create one index.js that would say this, right? It would say export the file from header. Okay, so now this is all fancy and dancy and everything nice. I would do some stuff very fast, but this is always the same thing, and I still have to create them and use those user snippets. So I was wondering how I can go a step further. And looking at answers about user snippets that are more advanced on Stack Overflow, I came up this extension from Visual Studio called multi-command, right? And what these extensions allows you is to basically give Visual Studio commands, like write a sequence of commands that a Visual Studio will listen to and will do whatever you say in a sequence. So if now the way you find out what commands you can give it, if you go on keyboard, open keyboard shortcuts and look for anything like a new file, right? File, new file. So basically this creates a new file, and you just say copy command ID, and this would be the ID of this command. So when you would use this command, it would create a new file under the active directory that it's selected, right? Now, for example, this one, close all editors. This, if you have any files open, so you could just copy this workbench, and this would be the command. If you would have any files open, when you run this command, it will close all the open editors, right? Now Explorer, this one, focus on folder view. What would happen, again, this is the command workbench explorer file view focus. What would happen is if what was active was a window that you open here, this will basically focus this, and it will basically select the last file that you had selected, right? So this is very nice because you kind of interact with the Visual Studio API, and you can give it commands. So that way you can do something more complicated than just a normal user snippet, because sometimes you have to combine user snippets that you created to do something more advanced, right? So I had to create. Now when you have multi-command, you can go in settings, the settings JSON like I showed you before, and you can go in multi-command commands, and you would create a command. You would give it here a name like multi-command. It needs to be like that with multi-command, and then give it a name like create folder structure, right? And sometimes you have to give it like a bigger interval. I gave it here an interval 100 because Visual Studio, when it does some things, it takes a while until it does them, and if you don't put an interval, sometimes you need a bigger interval, it can finish a command before it tries to do another one, so it will mess up. So sometimes you will have to basically experiment with how big the interval has to be for how many commands you have in the sequence. So the sequence that I had to write for creating a folder structure was something like this. Now this is a really big sequence. For most things that you would not need to do a sequence that much, but I wrote this sequence like this, all this stuff, and you see in this sequence I also use a command that's called editor action insert snippet. And so basically you can insert a snippet that you have created, or you can put, like, because I created well, you can either give it the name of the snippet, so args and name of the snippet, and you will insert that snippet, or you can do insert a snippet here like you would put the snippet when you create user snippets, right? So yeah, I had to write all this, but basically the commands that you find here, like I didn't know, this was the first time when I was writing it, but to find all these commands and to do stuff, like I said, you just go in keyboard shortcut and you look for an action that you need, and you can by finding something that you need, and then you just go copy command ID, and that will be the command. Also, you can like if you can find how something is done, you can look up on Google or on Stack Overflow, or maybe ask a question. But yeah, this is very nice, because at this point, after I wrote all this, right, now when I create a folder for a component, like new folder, oh, let's just mention that once you create that, so once you create this sequence, and the extension does have a description of how to create sequences, so you can look on there as well. Or if you, yeah, just it takes a lot of experimenting. Well, sometimes it takes less. But once you write this, you have this name here. You also have to open keyboard shortcuts and go in there and put keyboard shortcut that will execute, that will make Visual Studio start that series of actions that you put in here, like this. It will start this sequence and we start doing all this stuff that you said here. So you can see the name I gave it was multi-command create folder structure. So in here I had to put command, so I had to put this object in this key binding JSON, and I had to put command extension multi-command execute, and args would be this object with command, and the command would be multi-command create folder structure, which is the name I gave it. So now you can see I have this, when I press command shift C, will do all that series of action. So if I create a folder, create like for example header, which would be a new component, and now I hit command shift C, you can see how it does all the stuff I need just by the commands I gave it, and it basically created all these files like I need them with all this stuff, right? Just by hitting a keyboard shortcut. How amazing is that, right? So now the thing is, I knew before creating this humongous series of actions that I didn't really need to create that much. I basically did all this stuff to create this series of action because I wanted to learn how to use multi-command, because you do need it for like some more complicated user snippet and things. You need to know how to work with this. So I wanted to learn a little bit about these commands and how to use the multi-command extension. But for what I need here, there's actually another extension that is even better for this type of thing, for creating a folder structure. But again, I did this first because I wanted to learn how to use this series of actions to do stuff, because I will show you, after I show you about this other extension, I will show you still need it for some things that you don't have extensions for. Maybe it's kind of your own extensions, you kind of do your own extension. So anyway, this other extension that I'm talking about is folder structure. Fast folder structure, right? And this one allows you to define a folder structure, and it will create it for you when you say create folder structure, right? So basically, if you look on here, I will delete what I have now for folder structure just so you can see how you would do what you need, right? So first of all, let me delete this. Go in my settings, open settings JSON, and I will delete what I have for the fast folder structure. I have all this stuff for the fast folder structure. I will delete this. Okay. Oh, there's more stuff. Those are just the templates. So I need to delete all this. Okay. So I deleted that so I can create this thing in front of you so you can see how to use it, right? Okay. So what I want to do is first you want to create one of those folders with the structure that you will use. So I will create it with whatever I created before. You could create it by just writing the stuff that you need, right? I will just do this so I can show you. Okay, so now I have the common structure here that I would have, right, with all the files, and I want to create, but basically it's just using header as the name, and I want to make this as a template. So what I want to do is right click on it and go create template from this folder. You have to make sure you install the extension, otherwise this won't show when you right click, right? So you say create template from this folder, and it says please enter the name of your new template, and I will say React component, right? I click enter and it says which file do you want to put in the template, and I want to put all the files, right? So I say okay. Now he said they found some things that may be custom variables. The container, no, for me those are not the variables, so I will deselect them and I press OK. So when I press OK, basically this created in my settings, it created all this stuff: fast folder structures, the name of the structure that I have here, custom variables, nothing, right? And then you can see all this stuff is saying header, which is the name of that particular component, but instead of header, I want it to be the name that I give to that component. So if I go, I could go on Visual Studio Code and see the fast folder structure and see the instruction there, but I will just go here. And you can see in the documentation, you can also do some transforms, but you can use this one, FFS name, fast folder structure name, which is the name you give it. So you can use this one instead of header, and that will be what it will put in those positions, right? So I go here, instead of header, I will put this, right? Instead of header here. And this is basically the name of the files that he will create. And I wanted them to be, this FFS name will be the name I put first when I create the folder structure, right? And here index.js is fine. Now in here, if I go, it says header. I don't want header. I want it to be the name I give it at the beginning. Again, header. I don't want it to be header. I want it to be whatever name I give it. Right? I paste this here. Paste it here as well. And also in here. Well, I will just leave this for now because this will be with small letter. So, and again here I want FFS name. Now here I also want to have the FFS name here, but this has to be downcase. So you can see they also have this. Oh, and thank you for whoever created this extension. It's really good. You can say it has some transform that you can put, and I will put the lowercase transform on it. So that will lowercase it, right? That will lowercase whatever name I give there. Okay, we'll put that transform. Okay, and now this should all be working properly, but I also want one more setting, and the setting I want is this one. Let me go, where is it, I want this one, omit parent dictory true, so that, well, I'm not gonna really explain this one, but okay, so you put this one here after custom variables. This basically, I will explain now what this one is doing. I think this should be correct now. So now if I create, like for example, let's say I'm in a React project and I have a folder components, and I create a new component in there, new folder, footer. You can also put a command which will basically, well, a keyboard shortcut that will basically run that fast folder structure thing. It will just ask you for a name. So if I go Command Shift P and I go in keyboard shortcuts, I can look for fast folder structure, fast folder, or maybe FFS. Yeah, fast folder structure, and it says create folder structure, right? I go on this one, and you can see I already have one, which is option R, option C, which is option React, option component, right? So, but if you don't have one here, at the beginning you won't have one, you can just click on it and give it, just press the keyboard shortcut that you want to use. Just make sure you don't override any other shortcuts that you have. Okay, so I will close this. So now, having your folder that you just created active, I will just press option RC, and it asks me for a name. Well, it says first enter path where component should be created relative to project role. You can just press enter here, and then write footer again, right? Footer, right? And when I click enter, boom. Oh, what happened? I think, is this not how? I think if you actually do it from a keyboard shortcut, it doesn't work. So let me just delete this. Okay, so I think you will just go to need to go like this. So go create new folder, and yeah, now you just write the name, footer, and it will create all this file for you, the ones that you, and you can see it's using the name that you give it in all these files, and in here it uses it with a lower letter because you did that transform. Okay, so this is a very nice extension as well, and I could have done whatever I did with all those commands much easier using this one, but I wanted to learn those commands because there are some stuff that you don't have extensions for, so you just need to know how to work with those commands to do whatever you need, custom thing you need. And I will show you, for example, one thing that I used it for, another thing that I used it for. Let me just delete this. I have this. Right, so sometimes when I'm in a React component, sometimes you have to use something like history or location in the props, and you can't use this if you don't have this wrapped with this. You have to put with router, you have to put the name with router like this, right? So sometimes I would just be like working and, oh, I need to use history, but when I put history, oh, I need to put with router. So what I will need to do is go here before the name, write with router, put this, move the cursor here, put this. Now what I did is, instead of having to do that, now I just press option VR and it does this. Yes, you see, it's just basically surrounds it. and I can be anywhere in the document. I can be here, I press Option VR, oops, cancel. Oh, I press Command that way, Option VR, and it does this, right? So how this works, again, I use the multi-command and a user snippet. And let's see what's going on, what exactly I did. So going in settings, let's go to that one. Okay, so what I did, what I make it do is when I press Option VR, so basically I have this sequence here, and I have in here in Open Keyboard Shortcut JSON, I have this one where I give it the key, like the keyboard shortcut, Option V, Option R, and it executes this one with router, right? So let's see what I did. What I made it do is I set first sequence to be editor action select all. So the first thing when I press Option VR, it's gonna do a series of action like really fast. The first thing it will select all this. The second one, it will be, so you see, editor action select all, then editor action keyboard cut action. So what it will do, it will basically cut it, but it keeps it in memory, keeps it in the clipboard now. Then the next command would be to insert a snippet, and in snippet again we have access to those variables that I showed you at the beginning of the video, which is basically those tm, file name, base, clipboard, and all that stuff. So I did the clipboard thing, and I made this transform. So I basically had it oh my god, what am I saying? Yeah, so I basically wanted to, once it cuts it, it will put it back as a snippet, but it will transform it. It will kind of rip it in 3 parts. It will be this part from here to here in the group 1, because you can see again I have the groups here. I have group 1, then with router group 2, and then the third group. I showed you in the regex how you can see which group is which when you create a regex. So I created a regex that when given a structure like this, it will be basically looking for an export default something, and it will basically select this, all this from here up to here in the first group. It will select this in the second group, and this little thing in the third group, and then so basically it will look for that in the clipboard and split it in 3 parts, and then it will put the first part, then it will put with router and the second part in the little parentheses, right? And then it will put the third group. So that's what it's doing, is basically selecting all, cutting it but keeping it in the memory, and then inserting a user snippet that uses the clipboard info, but it's split in 3 parts with regex, and then it basically says, okay, once you selected this, put the first one as it is, which is this part until here, then put with router parentheses and the second part in here, the second group, and then put the third group, which is just that thing at the bottom, right? So that's why, like, it's still useful to know how to work with these commands in sequence, because otherwise this would not be able to be done just with a snippet, just being anywhere in the component and just do that, right? So yeah, hopefully I covered everything. If you have any questions that I didn't really cover properly, please leave me a comment in the comment sections. And if you enjoyed this video and think that you learned a lot, please give a like, subscribe, and share with your coder friends. I think this is one of the most advanced video going into user snippets at the moment on YouTube. I think most of them, like I want to say thanks at the end of the video. I want to thank you to Brad Traversy, which is obviously, well, I wouldn't say obviously, so I don't like maybe insult some other people with egos out there, but he's one of the best, Brad Traversy. He also has a video on user snippets, which is I think maybe the first video I watched on user snippets, and they have impressed me. But since then I had to like go more in depth and learn on my own, which sometimes it's harder to understand some of the documentation. So I basically had to do a lot of experimentation and looking to Stack Overflow answers. So I thought it was time for a more um, advanced video on this to be on YouTube. I also want to thank a few people on Stack Overflow which have helped me with stuff like this. They are very helpful when it comes to questions about user snippets. You can see this guy Victor Stripview. Sorry if I mispronounce your name again. Like you can see, he's like very active here, and he's helping a lot of people with, especially with regex related questions. And also there is this guy, Mark. He is very good when it comes to user snippet questions. He helps a lot of people, and I learned a lot from him as well, also with regex but also with user snippets. So I just wanted to thank you a few people. And yeah, if you liked it, please like it and subscribe and share it with your coding friends. Goodbye for now. Bye bye.